Welcome back. It is still iBrand Daybreak. If you're just joining us, you've not missed a lot. We still have so much packed up. And part of that, because we're just coming up from the newspaper headlines, and one thing has been trending. Adamawa has been in the news for the wrong reasons and for the right reasons. And for the right reasons, because finally His Excellency Fintiri has finally been declared winner of the gubernatorial elections in that state. And just before we get to the topic of the day, because I have my guests with me already in the studio. Good morning. You're welcome, Bayo.
Good morning.
How do you react to all the hulabaloo going on in Adamawa State?
Well, I would say that the judiciary has spoken about Adamawa, and INEC, for once, has been able to, they are trying to redeem their image coming out from the last election. It would have been something terrible if the declaration made by the REC of Adamawa had been made to stand. And I'm sure you'd have read that the candidate of the APC ran to court yesterday, trying to stop the declaration of Fintiri, but the courts turned that down. I think the judiciary, we expect so much from them, and I hope what has happened yesterday would have such a reputation. They'll be able to stand up and speak what is right according to the law. So it's a welcome development. The person the people want, the majority of the people want. Politics is a game of numbers. Who the majority of the people wants has been declared, and I think we're happy. We should be happy about that.
All right, what's your view as regards Binani's response to the fact that she's refuting the claim of not in any way bribing anyone with the said amount, 2 billion naira?
Well, you know, we can't come to a conclusion about that. Whoever feels aggrieved, she has come out. She's a person who has been accused of giving out the bribe, and she has said she didn't give the bribe. Yeah. So I think it's a welcome development. Nobody would admit such. It is criminal. So if the evidence is against her on the allegation of giving out bribe, then whoever has the evidences should put them out and let the security apparatus of the states, let them take their full course on it.
All right, let's get straight to what we have today. The Central Bank of Nigeria, CBN, has proposed that banks transfer funds in accounts that have been dormant for up to 10 years into a trust fund account, and which will ultimately be invested in treasury bills. The move comes in response to requests from banks and other stakeholders of the CBN to clarify the procedures for the management of dormant and inactive accounts by banks in the country. Nigeria Interbank Settlement System data recently showed that of 191.4 million bank accounts, active bank accounts in the country stood at 133.5 million as of December of 2021. The bank said it reserves the right to designate any other deposit or financial assets to be included in the list of eligible dormant accounts. And this move is aimed at ensuring that unclaimed monies in dormant accounts are put to good use. I wonder what that means. And will contribute to the development of the Nigerian economy. It goes ahead to say that it will also help to reduce the number of dormant accounts in the banking system. And the CBN also assured that the input of experts and other concerned parties will be considered before the final guidelines are issued. First of all, I'd like to ask, do they even have the right to do that? Do they have the right to tamper with people's accounts?
Yes, I think the CBN has the right to go on that journey they are embarking on. First and foremost, you just read now that of 191 million accounts, we have about, the gap is about 50 million accounts.
Yeah.
And some of us have had accounts go dormant. You know, your account just does not go dormant overnight. It's a process. So you start from your account being inactive, maybe for 6 months, then before it goes into that. I think the CBN, by this policy that they are trying to implement, they've given a very long rope for anyone. If you have your funds, well, perhaps to some people, leaving the monies in their accounts for so long might be a form of investments, but you know the banks carry weight on it, and 10 years is actually a very long time. Back to your question about if the CBN has that that power that to make such policies. The CBN is basically regulated by the CBN Act of 2007. And what binds the relationship of the CBN Act tells us what powers the CBN has: the power to issue treasuries, to buy treasuries, to discount treasuries and all of that, to even lend money to the federal government if there is a deficit. Now, there is what is called the BOFIA Act, the Banking and Other Financial Institutions Act of 2020. Specifically, if you look at, I think, Section 72 of the BOFIA Act of 2022, it gives the power. The CBN has this inherent power to what's it called, to the banks who are licensed in Nigeria. Once they have these kind of situations, the CBN can formulate policies around such investments. The welcome development for me in all of this is that the CBN has come out to say that it's not, the CBN is not just saying move the money in the dormant accounts just to my position. The CBN has come out, and we hope they live by what they've said, that they are investing these funds in treasury bills. You know, treasury bills are next to risk-free, and that's why you have the returns on it. Anyone who is investing in treasury bill must be someone who is conservative, someone who is averse to taking risk with their funds and all of it. So I think it's a welcome development. The banks, it's, you know, when monies just sit with banks, it's sitting with them at a cost. To us, when you have deposits with bank, we have deposits, we have credits. It's a liability to the bank. If they keep carrying it on like that, it might not be good for their portfolio. So for me, I think it's a welcome development. The CBN might want to go into that to also stabilize the economy. They are responsible for liquidity and stabilization of the economy. So I think it's a step in the right direction. Don't forget that one of the reasons why the CBN is also trying to implement this policy is to awaken people's consciousness, so that if you have funds in those accounts, and that is why the policy is not kicking up immediately. It's a wake-up call. If you have your funds sitting with banks, go and pick your funds so that you put it to greater use. And if you are not even picking your funds, take it, go to the bank, go and regularize the documentation so that it moves away from the state of being inactive, being dormant, to being active accounts. So basically, I think I support it. Maybe this might even throw up more information as regards people who have just abandoned their funds.
Okay, but you know, you're just sorry, Josh. Okay. You're just saying that now, yeah, about awakening people's consciousness, but we've not heard that on an official level. Like, CBN has not come out to say, okay, from this time to this time, if you have an account that you still want to get something off of, take your time and go. And do you see that happening? Do you think they're going to give such a time for people to?
Ideally, if you go back to the BOFIA Act that I mentioned, there is a responsibility placed on banks. Act, there are two definitions of banks. The first is the one that refers to the CBN having this power, and the next is the one that talks about licensed commercial banks or other financial institutions. There's a responsibility on those banks. It's not just giving time. There's a placed responsibility on them to advertise the accounts that fall into this portfolio in their books. So I think that responsibility is on the commercial banks, the financial institutions, to have first made a publication. And the law, or the act, also requires that they should have made attempts to reach out to the owners of that account. And you know, a lot of us are knowledgeable to know that if there's a provision, what is likely to be ringing in people's head is, okay, so what if I have money in the accounts, I'm a beneficiary of an account, and my parents, my wife, anyone who initiated or opened the account instead, what do I need to do? There are laid down laws that you need to approach the probate to get what's it called. So it is the idea is not to, I don't think the intent of CBN is to deny people of their rightful funds, is to wake people up. And you know, what CBN has not done is to give us a report that specifically shows a range or an amount that sits in these dormant accounts. That, I believe, that should have come with the number of accounts. We know that we have about 50 million more accounts that are dormant that fall into this category. We need to have an idea. Maybe when some of us have ideas of the quantum, the amounts of monies that are just sitting in those dormant accounts, we might want to agree with CBN that, well, it is the right time to make this, to implement these kind of policies.
All right, I quite as well understood what you just painted, but first, I'm going to take it from the angle of, yes, you're moving these funds that have been dormant. First, you said after a period of time, they are inactive before you move into dormancy. Now, looking at the state, you know, that they are moving this money from a state of dormancy into the treasury bills. First, you mentioned the fact that these monies or these funds are depositors' funds. Would it not be somewhat tantamount to you infringing on the right of the depositor when the depositor, for some very obvious reasons, have not opened up to say, this is the reason why I feel my account has been dormant? That's number one. Number two, you talked about the fact that it's on the part of the depositor a credit, but it's a liability to the bank. Is the bank not also making use of the funds available in the bank for transactions? So how would that amount to liability on the part of the bank? That's number two. Number three, the issue of one's account being dormant. Could it not be that some persons might have been deceased for a while? Nobody knows. Is it not, something that beholds on the bank to make further inquiries to know why this account has been dormant, why this account has been inactive? Maybe for some obvious reason, this person may be dead. Why not reach out to the families? Let's find out who this person is. Is this person still alive? What's happening that he's not been using his account before moving it to the treasury bills? I'm just asking for someone.
Okay, so so that is why the CBN didn't just wake up, despite the fact that it has inherent powers to carry out this policy. That's why they didn't just wake up, and they've given some room. If you read their publications, they also said they are waiting for other stakeholders to make contributions, suggestions, opinions about it. It is not the case of the CBN dipping its hands into depositors' funds. Like I said during the intro, during discussion on this, that there are responsibilities that have been placed on the banks. The banks are supposed to have reached out to the account holders. The banks are supposed to have published the names of those accounts who are in dormancy in at minimum 2 national newspapers. I have not seen that happen over the last 5 years. I'm sure you have also not seen that. So that responsibility is placed on the banks, the commercial banks now, not the CBN. You understand what I'm saying? So the other standpoint is this. If the right thing is done by the commercial banks, when you say that the banks are making profits, making returns from the funds that are sitting with them, we're talking about a 10-year period. Whatever the bank needs to, because you also need to understand, going by the Bofia Act, once any money is moved into that position, into the dormancy position, the banks already on a regular basis now give reports back to CBN that this is the amount of dormant accounts we have. These are the amounts that sit in it. The moment you start giving those reports back to CBN, you are expected not to make any profit from that money. So you might want to understand why the banks would also want to take those funds away from their position and take it to CBN. You understand? And we're talking about a 10-year period. The policy is not what is just going to happen overnight. You are going to have an opportunity. If you think the person who runs the account initially is dead, you can approach the courts to get probate so that you have access to those accounts as beneficiaries, as executors, as administrators of those of the estate of the deceased people, so that the monies will go to the right places. What we are talking about here is the fact that we don't want monies just sitting with the banks. Let's put these monies to use. I should also mention, for clarity purpose, that the CBN is not saying that once I take this money, then I've taken the money off you. First, there is the requirement that it should have been dormant for 10 years. Not 1 year, not 5 years, 10 years. Next is when it's moved to the position of the CBN has told you for what purpose the money will be put to use. That is investing in treasury bills. I said earlier that treasury bills are near non-risky investment. The third is that there's the provisions, or the provisions also allows you, even though the funds have been moved to treasury bills into the position of CBN, if you're a beneficiary or you are the person who operates that account, the monies can still come back to you.
In what form?
It will come back to you with the interest that it has accrued in.
Over what period of time?
No, so this is it. The responsibility is on the account holder. So I show up in the bank today, I've had my money left in the account for 10 years. I show up in the bank today, I say, okay, I'm Bayo, I'm the owner of this account. I provide necessary identification to show that it's my account. I provide, maybe I should also delve into the fact that each bank as we speak today, so many things might be happening in some of these financial institutions.
I'm coming there.
Yeah.
I'm coming there.
Okay,
I just wanted you to land.
Okay, so I'll take it. So I think for CBN, for them to be taking this policy, it's not all the time we have to look at our public institutions as being non-accountable. What are they going to do with the funds again? I believe your funds that are placed with the CBN and the trust fund, like they've said, so it is not just money going to the CBN. It is money accounted for going into a trust fund, particularly for this purpose. It is money that will be placed in treasury bills. We understand? You can, in order to stop my money from going into that account with the CBN today, all that is expected from me is to go into the bank, go and activate my account, put it in active status, then it's taken off that bill. Even if I do not do that, and it goes into the trust fund that's been set up by CBN, I also still have a right to those funds, and I believe I am not expected to walk to the CBN.
All right,
my transaction will be with the bank. Okay. I will still go to my bank, provide the necessary documentation, and my funds will come back to me.
All right, let me put you on a pause mode because I'm going to throw this question back to you again.
Okay.
Are you also aware that as we speak currently, there are certain individuals in the bank that manipulates depositors' accounts?
So that is why.
Number one.
Okay.
Number two, are you also aware that in most cases, when an individual is deceased, some certain individuals in the bank quickly do some very sharp practices on their accounts? Are you aware of that?
Well, I wouldn't say Let's
not live in denial.
Okay. Let me say this. Maybe you are not aware that I have over 15 years banking experience, and this has taken me through different, from operations to product development, strategy management, trades, recovery, and that. The scenario you've painted is not what is not happening. It is happening. You understand what I'm saying? But you see, that is the more reason why we should encourage the CBN to be the custodian of these funds rather than leave it just on the platform of the bank.
All right. Sorry, Bayo. I wish we can go on having this conversation, but we're short of time. But quickly, let me just ask you this question, because much as we're trying to pass information, it is for the man on the streets, because they're the people that are most affected. This mop-up of funds that is going to be happening, what does it mean for an average Nigerian?
Well, monies, when you have monies, you are supposed to continue to use your money. If you want to save your funds, it is not for you to just leave it with the bank. You can either do fixed deposits, you can put them in savings accounts. Let the bank also be aware that the owner of this fund exists. It has not been. These funds that we're talking about, dormant accounts, to the layman, it should be interpreted as abandoned money. We're not talking about money left for a year. I go back to it again. Not money left for 5 years. These are monies left for 10 years. You and I should ask ourselves, what could be happening that will make someone leave money in an account for 10 years? Most probably, they are dead. But the law, the inherent laws of the states already make provisions that the fact that I have monies in accounts and I'm dead does not mean my children, my wife does not have access to the monies. You understand? They might not be aware that I actually have those kind of money in those banks. You understand? And that is why a responsibility is placed on the commercial banks to publish the names. So before implementation of this policy, what we should all be pushing the central bank to do is to ensure that the commercial banks, the specialized banks, and every financial institution puts on the pages of newspapers the names of those accounts that fall into this category, so that the right things will be done by the layman, by the people on the street.
Mr. Bayo, are you aware that certain individuals do not even pick the national dailies and read? Are you aware?
Yeah, I'm aware of that.
So how would you think you have done the needful when you only publish
okay
on the national dailies without directly reaching out to the next of kings of this individual?
So I should also say that people might be negligent about their responsibilities. Maybe we should push the CBN also to ensure, apart from publications in newspapers, ensure that the people who opened these accounts are reached out to. If they are not, there's no account you open today in Nigeria that you don't have next of kin. There's no account you open in Nigeria that you don't provide a phone number. There's no account you open in this country today that you do not provide email addresses, home address, and all of it. Maybe the first step should be the banks reaching out to those contacts, so that we're sure that people's funds are not seen to be legally taken or sought from them, taken forcefully from them, and just put into the CBN, who then goes on to invest it into treasury bills. One of the reasons why the CBN will be doing this, I can imagine, will be to balance monetary liquidity of funds, will be to, instead of leaving it in the hands of commercial banks, other banks. We're not saying they are fraudsters. We're not saying their staffs are not people who lack integrity. I think one of the reasons why they will also be doing it is, like I said, it might have started becoming a liability to the banks themselves. So they need to push it out for investment purpose.
Now, finally, because someone out there might be interested in this very conversation we're having. Now, you talked about a period of 10 years. Someone might decide to play the devil's advocate. Okay, let me see what they do with my funds. Let me pretend, because a lot of people might have several accounts that they may not even know exactly how much is domiciled in those accounts. I might decide to leave one account for the next 10 years. Let me see what happens, right? Of what importance? What does it mean to that average man who doesn't know about treasury bills?
So if I don't want my, maybe we need to sensitize the people more. If I don't want my account to go into that state, all I need to go do is walk into the bank periodically, update my records and all of it. Let's also not forget that we're looking at it from the point of the layman. Are you not also thinking about people who have stolen money and stashed away in those accounts, and have just left it because they don't seem to be able to meet up with documentation that allows them move those monies out of those accounts? There are two sides to a coin.
All right, thank you so much, Bayo, for coming on the show this morning. It was a very eye-opening session we had with you. Thank you for answering those questions and doing justice to them.
Thank you so much.
I hope that if you have monies in your several accounts that you haven't updated for over a while, even if it's for 5 years, I mean, that's a lot of time. Just step into the bank, give them your ID card, and do whatever is needed, and save your money to yourself. It is still the iBrand Daybreak. A lot of financial talks happening this morning, because when we come back from this break, we will be having Charles Fakroa talk to us, do personal finance with us. Stay with us. Don't go anywhere.